In 1984, by George Orwell, Orwell predicted that there would be constant wars in the world today. War had become normal for the citizens of Oceania, and they never lived in a time without war. Here are some examples from 1984 of constant war. In Oceania, war had been literally continuous, though strictly speaking it had not always been the same war. Orwell 42. Sometimes Oceania was at war with Eurasia, therefore Oceania had always been at war with Eurasia. Orwell 34. While other times, Oceania was no longer at war with Eurasia, and it must have been to the agents of East Asia that the three dead men had betrayed their country. Orwell 79. Winston could not keep track of the wars because it's always one bloody war after another. Orwell 154. Winston tried to find a time when there was no war, but he could not definitely remember a time when his country had not been at war. Orwell 32. War in the Middle East is currently a controversial topic in news headlines everywhere because of the United States' interaction with the wars. The United States uses drones to wage war on other countries because with drones there are less US soldiers dying and it is easier to attack from the sky than from the ground. It has been proven that the United States uses these drones to perpetuate the war on terror in the Middle East, continuing the never-ending war and violence. Here are a few headlines about drones and constant war. Now to answer the question, what are drones? Drones are remote control aircrafts that are used for waging war on other countries. The United States predominantly uses Predator and Reaper drones for the military. To start a drone strike, first there has to be a target. This will usually be a terrorist leader or someone of importance. Then the drone is to get within 6 miles of the target because that's the distance the drone can shoot from. The drone operator will fly the drone above the required target and will get ready to shoot the target. Then the operator will shoot the target and will fly away. The United States uses these drones in Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Libya, and many other countries around the Middle East. The US predominantly uses these drones to target Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. Now onto the statistics about the war on terror. The United States has been rapidly increasing the amount of drones used in the Middle East. In 2009, there were 52 drone strikes in the Middle East, while in 2010 there were 128 drone strikes. This is a massive increase in drone strikes, and to put it in perspective for our world, in 2010 there was at least a drone strike every 3 days. In the year 2011, the United States was involved in 6 separate wars at the same time in the Middle East. Every single drone strike the United States deploys on another country or terrorist group is its own act of war. That means over the time span of the year 2010, the United States had 128 acts of war on the Middle East. The statistics prove that the wars are continual, and there is never a time when the United States is not in war with the Middle East. This relates to 1984 because there's never a time when Oceania is not at war with another country. These attacks in the Middle East are so frequent that people do not know when they even happened, like how the people of Oceania do not notice when they are hit by rocket bombs, and how it seems like a normal event. One of the drone strikes that happened very recently was the Iran drone strike on January 3rd, 2020. The United States waged a war in Iran by killing Iran's General Soleimani. It is said that Soleimani was the architect of nearly every significant operation by Iranian intelligence and the military forces over the past 2 decades. That is from the New York Times. This attack came after the U.S. contractor was killed in Iran at the end of December. The U.S. claims it is right by doing this because Soleimani has killed hundreds of United States soldiers during wars and plotted attacks. To put it in perspective, for the US, this would be as if Iran killed a US General, Secretary of State, and Secretary of Defense all in one person. Soleimani probably had the most authority out of anyone in Iran, so it is not surprising that Iran shot missiles back at US bases in the Middle East. Although the United States and Iran seem to have lifted the tensions that there were during this event, there is a very huge chance that this war is very far from over with Iran. The United States gets itself involved in these small attacks across the Middle East with drones, perpetuating a never-ending war in the Middle East. Another place the United States targets with drones is Afghanistan. The United States has had the most drone strikes on Afghanistan out of any place in the world in the past 5 years. Overall, since January 2015, the United States has had 5,888 drone strikes on Afghanistan, which is much more than the US has had anywhere in the Middle East and the Middle East as a whole. A person who thought he could solve the problems of war in the Middle East was Obama. He ran on the idea that he was going to stop the drone crisis in the Middle East and withdraw troops, but nothing close to that happened during his tenure. During the first 2 days of Obama's office, drones hit Waziristan, killing innocent people. This went unnoticed, and people did not find out about this event until later. People normally think of Obama as withdrawing troops from the Middle East and as solving problems in the Middle East, but he did not do anything close to this. He made the problem in the Middle East worse. On the date 9/11/14, Obama gave in to adding drones and troops in the Middle East. Obama did this to stop the Islamic State, but there are too many things happening too fast with all the terrorist groups, and he could not solve all the problems. It is a never-ending cycle of drone strikes and terrorism that ends up with no solution except a constant war that Obama, the president most opposed to this issue, could not fix. People normally only look at the large-scale impacts of drone strikes and the impacts on civilians, when they should also look at the problems with drone accuracy and the operators. The government claims that drones are 100% accurate with what they hit, but the people who operate the drones do not agree. One operator, Heather Lindbaugh, tells a different story of operating drones. She says that the problem is that the drones are not 100% accurate with their photo, and it is very hard to hit a very small dot on the screen. The operators never know if they hit the right target or if they hit civilians, so they're left with the guilt of maybe hitting civilians, which leads to many operators having PTSD and mental health problems and trauma. There are more severe cases in which operators commit suicide out of guilt for killing innocent people for the government. In 1984, the thought police are like the drone operators because they are given a task and they have to complete it no matter the severity of the issue or if they want to do it. The problem with drone strikes is dehumanization. By the United States killing all these people in the Middle East, they are dehumanizing whole populations of people. The United States reduces people in the Middle East to the value of animals, relating to how the party in 1984 treats the pearls like animals. This problem shows how the United States only cares about its own citizens and only cares about them not dying, and how operating drones helps them. But the United States does not care at all about the civilians that are being killed by the drone strikes. In the Middle East, from 2006 to 2008, 482 people were killed, and 265 of those were civilians who had no affiliation with terrorist groups. The United States kills all these people without caring, leading to dehumanization and not caring about the lives of others besides themselves. The information from the past 20 years shows the trends of ongoing drone attacks and shows no evidence of the wars letting up or stopping. The specific incident in which the Iranian general was killed could be a spark to a new era of even more military conflicts in the Middle East. I predict that the wars in the Middle East will escalate because of the drone strikes in Iran, and that Iran will be one of the main places that the wars will happen. There's no way to undo what any of these countries have done, including the United States, so there's no way to have immediate peace. Like David Rathkop, I believe that the young members of the United States military who will serve in this latest conflict will themselves welcome their own children into a world in which American troops are still fighting in the desert battlegrounds in and around Iraq. FP News. These trends prove that the wars will most likely not end in the near future or even in the next generations. Although it looks as if the wars will not end soon, one solution could be the United Nations makes an international law banning all military drones and UAVs. Doing so would stop the proxy wars the United States gets involved in and save many civilian lives. This drone ban is the best solution because it would make the United States and other countries using drones like the United Kingdom and Israel think about if they would risk their own soldiers fighting in these wars, which in most cases the answer would be no, and the problem would be solved. There still lies a problem of what would happen to the terrorist groups and their drones. The answer is, if no countries are attacking back and getting angry at the terrorist groups, then there's no reason for the terrorist groups to attack. The terrorist groups feed off of other countries attacking them and other countries fearing them. The terrorist groups would also get less recruits because the problems of food insecurity would not be as bad. Although this solution will take a long time, it is the best solution because it solves the problem effectively. Other types of solutions could be individual solutions. In these solutions, citizens of the United States would get to vote on if they want the United States to stop using drones. They would vote during a special voting day for this specific issue and other issues like it. This would be like a special elections voting day. The voting would allow the citizens to use the United States democracy to decide the future for the country. After the first vote on drones, there would be other votes on banning other weapons like fighter jets which caused conflicts in Asia. Unlike the party in 1984 where citizens had no power, this type of individual solution would bring the power to the people.